I was not expecting this, I'll be honest. So you guys surprised me, and I'm rarely surprised. So um, I don't know. Walk me
Hey.
through, how did this conversation happen? Was How long were you guys having this conversation about you coming back, Kristen, and Danny, you know, retiring and taking on this, new residency role, which I want to hear more about.
Well, of course you were surprised because it was a surprise. This wasn't a planned thing. So you were as surprised as
Yeah.
maybe Kristen,
Yeah.
and anyone associated with it because this was an opportunity that happened because I got an opportunity.
Mm.
So if I can be selfish for a minute,
Yeah.
it was not my intention to leave Martin yet. I'm not as young as you are, Brian. So at some point I was going to retire and ride off into the sunset, but it wasn't planned on being now this year even.
Mm.
But I think you know that I've always had painting as a side passion of mine since I
Mhm.
was 10. In fact, if you ask a 10-year-old Danny, what did he want to be when he grew up? I would say commercial artist, although I didn't know what that was. I knew the artist part, and assumed commercial meant I could make money being an artist. So that was a dream since I was 10, and I never stopped painting. I never stopped drawing. That was the thing I did. I went to college for art education. I was going to teach art at a college level, I believe, and just my career took a turn.
Mm.
So that's always been a side thing. But most recently, my work has gotten the attention of some people, and specifically a gallery owner who was interested in my work and wondered why I didn't sell and what did I want to do. And I said, I do this for me, but she recommended I apply to a residency
Okay.
and, uh, to a few of them. And my thought was, oh, I'll apply. I'm not a working artist. I'm not known. I'm sure there's a long list of people, but I got in.
Yeah.
That accelerated everything. So that was the impetus for all of this. So it was all on me. It was a thing that I dreamed about, but it was not a near term thought in my mind, but it became one very quickly. So then the question was, now what? So
Well,
I'll leave it there so you understand that the reason all of this went into motion was because there was an opportunity that I couldn't pass up.
so you got the news. When was that? Was that in the summer? Can you walk me
No,
through the timeline? Yeah.
no, this found this out this year.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, it was 2 months ago.
Okay. So that happens, and then you call Kristen. What are you
Well, it
telling
wasn't that easy.
Not right away.
her?
It
Yeah.
was it wasn't that easy, Brian. Come on. So I got that news, but then I had to start thinking about, what do I do? Because as much as I would love sometimes selfishly to be the person to just say, peace out, you guys figure it out. I'm not that person. I can never do that to Martin. I care too much, put too many years in, care about the future. So it was starting to have conversations with my new boss at Omnicom. This is something I want to do. Let's talk about how. And I just went through options, and we talked openly about what it could be, how it could work. And at this very moment, what's the right thing to do? And Kristen was a long shot. Kristen was the kind of long shot that you say, if it can happen, it's the perfect answer, but still a long shot. At least I thought.
Right.
So she was one of the options, but in my mind, the best option at this very time. Eventually, I reached out to Kristen.
Gotcha. So, Kristen, we spoke 2 years ago. You were like, you told me you were retiring and you're moving on from the traditional agency space and all that. We'll get into what you've been up to, but let's talk a little bit about what made you want to come back. And then, eventually we'll talk about what you've been up to. But why was this proposition interesting to you now? Obviously, you have a love for Martin as a company, but why now? Why did it make sense for you?
Yeah. Um, well, it's funny. We say we throw it out like obviously you have love for Martin almost as like a flippant known, but that is the whole reason. I wasn't unhappy in what I was doing. I actually love what I'm doing at the museum. And but I've spent 20 of my 30 years at Martin. And I also believe that Richmond is a stronger city if Martin's a strong agency and it's transitions are seamless. I think the brand center is stronger when Martin is stronger. I believe Martin recruits and brings talent into this state, which is good for the museums in the state. So it's really kind of a whole domino effect. And the city really just punches above its weight creatively, period. So I actually had a painting of Danny's in an exhibit that we did our Juneteenth exhibit last year. And I had been begging him pretty much ever since then to either let me commission something or have him gift me something, just because of our long, long friendship. But he has been resistant to my requests. So I'm hopeful that maybe if he goes and does this residency in France, that he will produce so much work that he might find a little piece for me in the mix. But he's incredibly good, and like ridiculously good. And his wife also works at the Virginia Museum of Fine Arts, which is an institution that punches way above its weight. And so it felt like, if Martin ever needs something,
Mhm.
the answer is yes. There is no other answer but yes. But it's not born out of me being unhappy
Would
with
It
my
you?
is. Look, so part of it, Brian, just sorry to interrupt you, that
No, you're okay. Yeah.
Chris and I were partners for years, and this really felt to me like Kristen was saying, I'll help you do the next thing
Mm,
indirectly by saying yes. And frankly, I feel it. I haven't said this to her. I'll say it now live.
mhm,
It felt like a very selfless act, because she knew how passionate I am about this next thing, and how important it was for me to figure out how the next thing is going to impact Martin and what's the best way to make this work. And she said yes with very little hesitation, and I'd love to believe that it's in part because I asked her.
It's 100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's interesting because, I know like so much has happened in those 2 years, right? The acquisition of IPG, it's a whole new holding company now, Kristen. And I don't know, like how much did that play into your decision making in terms of like, you know, there's a new owner, there's a new structure coming in. Is that something that excited you or you wanted to be part of even more? Or like, I don't know, like what was that conversation like?
Well, I will say I got to meet my new boss. That was part of the process, and I really like him, so that certainly helped. I wasn't pining to get back in the ad industry, but it's not because of a dislike or a distaste for advertising. I will say one thing that does excite me is, if you follow Patricia Corsi or John Hegarty on social media, they're very much both talking about the pendulum swinging back towards creativity. And, I feel like that has been a through line, a red line of my whole career. And when I retired, I debated doing something politically, but did a little bit of a walkabout, literally. And the night before I had gone to walk the Camino, I had gone on my own dime to the DNC to see what that moment was like. And certainly there was solidarity, there was excitement. Civic duty is important to me. So, I mean, all those things matter. But I knew within a week or two of walking that I did not want that as a vocation. And then luckily, Virginia had two women in Abigail Spanberger and Ghazala Hashmi that were very well qualified, and they went on to win. And we have our first female governor ever, and that's amazing. So it also allowed me to think, what is a non-negotiable in my life? And creativity is that. And it's not that I couldn't have fused creativity into politics. I would have done it, but I don't think it would have been as natural as going into the museum world. And I
Yeah.
feel like I am ready for the challenge. I'm armoring up in a way to go back and have that conversation back within the ad industry, because I feel like this whole last few years, consolidations aside, just this idea of giving away creative for free or at really low margins, and making all the money on media. And then with the entrance of AI, where I think media is going to be one of the first areas to be replaced or marginalized in that respect, the pendulum is absolutely switching back towards craft and creativity. And when I look at the work in the world, not only the artwork in the world that I follow and love, but some of the best artists were in advertising, Andy Warhol, Lichtenstein, Shepard Fairey. There's been so many. But then on top of it, I feel like even modern day Zach Posen I mean, the Gap ad, I mean, these are people that have always been about creativity first and foremost, and they are driving the conversation and they are creating what is most relevant and what is most talked about. And that is space that Martin knows well. That is space that I think needs, it's a battle worth fighting. It needs other people to armor up next to Patricia and Sir Hegarty and whoever else is on that. And sign me up. I mean, I think these are important messages, and the industry needs to remember what it's great at and what its value stems from. And if I can help with that, I think it'll benefit our whole creative community back here.
And the last thing, I asked Kristen, like, you're one of these people that you could have taken, I think, a network position if you really like, if that's what you wanted, right? Like,
Wanted it?
yeah, I think, and I think, there was a moment where you were, juggling Mullen and Marion, and I don't know how many people that could have done that, right? So,
Thank you.
one, like, do you view this as, and I know maybe there's no answer to this, is this where you see yourself retiring from the agency business? Like, this is your final agency home?
Yes, 100%. Like, I I know where I want to go, and I was out and I'm coming back because it's the right thing to do by the agency. It's the right thing to do for Danny. It's the right thing to do for the people I care about. It's the right thing to do for the city. I think I can offer an additional voice on the right side of the battle for the industry, but I was not pining on the outside. And this will be the final chapter. Even though I already thought I had the final chapter, it'll be the real final chapter. But it's exciting. The difference is last time I didn't know where I was going next, and this time I do. So I know what I'm fighting for. And that's a huge weight because I spent years trying to figure out what next. And now I know.
So do you have a specific timeline in mind, or you're just, we'll see?
I'll stay as long as it's necessary.